So it looks like the rumors for next generation are starting to get more serious. We've kind of talked a bit about Project Scarlett here and there, but now it looks like more and more information is coming out. We've also talked about the PS5 possibly with rumored leaked specs and everything, but it looks like Microsoft could be doing something that I don't think Sony can do in the next generation. Now, what we're talking about here should be considered rumor currently. That's why this is rumor wave, since nothing has come from Microsoft or third parties or even a hardware company like AMD, for example. Like if AMD came out and said, oh, these are the specs of the next generation Xbox, we'd probably take that as mostly fact since they're the ones designing those specs. But this actually comes from a Microsoft journalist who appears to have knowledge within Microsoft from insiders, and that is from Brad Sams. They posted a full article over on Thurt.com. There's a link in the description for that. And they also posted a full video detailing kind of what we're going to be talking about here and then what I think about this situation as it's currently rumored. So there are links down in the description if you want to check out either of them, whether it's the article or the video that they talk about this whole thing with. So we know, of course, Microsoft is working on the next Xbox system, or systems, as we've heard from Phil Spencer himself, appearing to allude to multiple systems, whether it's multiple SKUs for hard drive sizes or possibly capabilities. And that's where this rumor seems to fall in line with different systems that have different abilities, whether one's weaker and one's stronger, much like the Xbox One S compared to the X, although this seems to be much different. See, what we're talking about here appears to be Microsoft pursuing their cloud-based service heavily to the point where a system that they would release actually requires that cloud service. Now, what we're seeing here from Brad Sams is a system releasing from Microsoft alongside whatever their traditional system is. The first thing we need to really get out of the way here is this doesn't appear to be Microsoft's main, big local system. They're still going to release a beefy traditional, beast of a console, I'm sure, compared to what we know now. Probably in 2019, 2020, we assume, is when these systems are going to be showed up or talked about. It doesn't necessarily have to be talked about in the same year that they're released, as we saw with the Xbox One X, for example, where that took like 16 months from when we heard about it to when it actually came out. So, let's talk a bit about what we could be seeing here. Now, the system that could be coming out that would be cloud-based seems to be targeted around something called, I guess, Scarlett Cloud. And that would entail you buying a system that is significantly cheaper than the other system. The Xbox One X, for example, is $500. There are a lot of people theorizing that this system could be $100, possibly $125. I assume the roof would be $150, although if they can get this system out at $100 from what you're going to hear, it seems like that could really affect next generation. So this system would basically use the cloud to complete computations and essentially run the game that would be in front of you on your TV. Now, it's very important to note what kind of streaming we're talking about here, because we know game streaming as the system you're playing on doesn't do much of anything. All it's really doing, that's why we're going to point where you do it in your browser and everything, all it is doing is sending and receiving data. Whereas the stream that they appear to be talking about is more in line with your system is getting help from the cloud, but not necessarily doing nothing. For example, it will be doing things like managing your inputs as you press buttons on the controller, or even collision detection, whether it's, you running into a wall or a bullet hitting you or something. That would actually be done by the system you're playing on. See, the cloud would do a lot of other things, whether it's trolling the world or figuring out what's going on with AI, or as we've seen with Crackdown, where a building collapses, it would figure out all of the math and computations and everything as those buildings begin to crumble and fall. And the reason this apparently is happening now is because Microsoft seems to have, or at least they believe they have, figured out the latency issue. See, when I play PlayStation Now, or any other service, OnLive was a big one, there have been a few of them, the thing that I always came back to when I checked it out was, this is a cool idea, but the latency issue makes it impossible to play some games. RPGs, I'll say this, like a JRPG or a slow RPG, you're probably fine. But if you're playing a fighting game, I wouldn't even bother. It's just, it makes no sense. First-person Twitch shooters, same thing. Like a Call of Duty, I don't think it would go over that well, and I have pretty much seen that experience consistently, even from like PlayStation Now, even the newest iteration. That's why Game Pass was so intriguing, because you download the game and play it locally. And once again, there will be a local system if you don't want any part of this cloud streaming service. So I had this thought as I was reading through this. I said, okay, would third parties really want to develop for what is essentially two different systems? I mean, I assume you have to figure out what needs to be broken up for the cloud, Azure, I guess, and your local system. With the cloud-based or Scarlett Cloud, you would have to figure out what goes where. Whereas if it's a local system like the other system they're coming out with, the more traditional one, everything's being done and taking place right in front of you in your local box. That's something I'm still concerned about, despite it being outlined in this rumor that Microsoft would pretty much mandate that it would have to be for both. If you're going to develop for the Xbox, or whatever the next system's called, we'll say Project Scarlett for now, it has to work on both. You can't leave one behind, whether it's maybe you just want to do stuff with the streaming service, maybe you have like a big idea and it needs that servers to do all of the work, like how we're seeing with something like Crackdown's destruction, or maybe you don't want to deal with the cloud and figure out what needs to be broken up and you just want to develop for a local system. Apparently, it has to be, or at least work for both, and that concerns me a bit when it comes to third parties, as one of these systems is not at all proven. This cloud system, the idea, it's not something that people are used to at this point for like their main system, because if you bought the Scarlett Cloud system, you would always have to be connected to the internet so you could play your games. And that's not something we're used to at this point. Sure, you have things like PlayStation Now, but you can also just take a disc, pop it into your PlayStation 4, and just play it without having to make calls to a server constantly. Something else that was very, very intriguing here is in this article, it's written that Microsoft could possibly be looking to use this as an entry point to get people in with the cloud service, because they're going to have to prove that it works. But what if you don't need this system to try it out, right? Maybe you do still need to be, this is another thing, you have to, I assume, be an Xbox Live subscriber. But what if you didn't need their cloud Scarlett system? What if you needed like a media box, like an Amazon Fire TV or something, or a PlayStation, or your Windows PC? What if you got to the point where you could actually play all of this on any device? Because that's what it seems like Microsoft wants to do. Now, I want to make this very clear cut. I don't think PlayStation would ever, honestly, let Microsoft on their system. I do possibly think Nintendo might. That's possible, I guess. They're acting, all buddy-buddy with them now, but that would be weird almost, wouldn't it? To where you can use a Nintendo Switch and play all these Microsoft games on your Switch. You just have to subscribe to Xbox Live. I don't know if Nintendo would want that, because what would Nintendo get from that exactly? I'm not sure. I already know, I'm positive Sony wouldn't want that. But Windows 10 PCs could automatically become people who are subscribed to Xbox Live. Consider how important these Xbox Live or just services in general are to Microsoft, and that becomes a very clear-cut picture. If they can go to investors when they do their reports, and now they're saying, what, 50 to 60 million Xbox Live users or something, what if they all of a sudden show up and they say, we have 150 million Xbox Live users because we are also catering to anything that can play this, and that system's allowed it to be on, but they could then count people on PC who are loading it up, people on their cell phones, very important to think about, that could load this stuff up and play these games. At that point, you're collecting possibly $60 a year from a massive audience. And that's kind of what Microsoft wants right now, is to have their service side being massive and just huge in size. Now, like I said, this is rumor, but man, does it line up with everything Microsoft has been talking about doing with their service side. Now, of course, you'll also have the option, according to this, to buy a standard system. But $100, if they can get it out at just a flat $99.99, right, $100, I feel like there's a lot of people who might just buy it just because. Like, if you have the internet and you generally play your games online anyway, and the lag really is very minimal, or the latency is very minimal, I feel like some people are going to jump in. Now, of course, data caps and internet speed is still to be seen. How much does it need to do these computations, things like that? But $100 is a very compelling price point. And the other thing is, they would then have a system out that's significantly cheaper than the competition, whether they want to count the Nintendo Switch as competition, or more than likely the PlayStation 5 as competition. The PS5 could be $400 to $500, along with what Microsoft's system could be, but a $100 Xbox, and you know they're going to count that in sales when it comes to how many systems have they sold. If that actually sells really well, just because of the price point, yeah, they could honestly win the next generation in terms of units sold, just because that system exists and it's so easy to buy. Now, of course, there are still a lot of pitfalls here. For example, I assume even for single player games, then we'll need to have purchased Xbox Live, as the servers aren't free to use, right? While Microsoft has the ability to do it because they have like the massive server farms and everything that they have, and they've been developing this setup for a while now, it's still not free. So I assume one of the pitfalls is going to be you have to pay $60 a year, and this is all assumption again, but it would make sense. They make you have to be an Xbox Live subscriber even if you're on Windows 10. Remember I've been talking about how do they get Windows 10 users to pay for this kind of stuff? Well, if they have Xbox exclusive games like they kind of have now with the Halo, for example, or others, or if you just have a weaker PC and you don't feel like going out to buy a video card for $300 to $400, oh, I can just sign up for Xbox Live and play these games at a decent quality. That could be a way to get PC users to pay for Xbox Live. Now, of course, not ones with powerful rigs, but others, the majority, by the way, were people with laptops or office work computers and stuff. That would be very interesting to see them do that, but then you're paying Xbox Live for single-player games. It's something to think about there. And then, of course, the internet connection speed that you'll probably be required to have, and your data caps that, well, Comcast and others, they pretend like it doesn't exist, but when you go over it, they let you know at times. So we'll see about all of that, but it's fascinating to see this, and this could honestly change the landscape and the picture of the next generation drastically, because then we're going to see Microsoft do something that both Nintendo and Sony cannot do with their server farms, and it's going to be fun to watch. But of course, these are all rumors now. Let me know what you guys think down below about all of this stuff. Would $100 Xbox that runs off of the cloud, not the way we know streaming now. That's very important to realize this. It's not going to be the same streaming service the way it's outlined here. So we probably would have differences in latency and stuff that would have to be basically remeasured according to what we know now. But would you be interested in that for $100? Or are you all local and you'd rather save up for the more expensive, local machine? It's just so interesting to see. Also, guys, make sure you like the video if you like it, dislike it if not, and I'll see you guys tomorrow morning, 8 a.m. Eastern Time for Newswave.